You ever wonder how a simple, crystal clear message from the top can turn into a completely garbled mess by the time it reaches everyone else? It's a huge problem, and it can silently sabotage even the best plans. So today, we're going to break down the strategic solution to fix it, once and for all. Oh yeah, we've all been there, right? That game of telephone? You whisper something in someone's ear, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, sell the blue chips has somehow turned into smell the new chips. It's hilarious when you're a kid. But in a business setting, well, that's a recipe for absolute disaster. Because, in the workplace, the consequences are anything but funny. When that message gets twisted, especially with really important company news, it doesn't just create a little confusion. It becomes a breeding ground for rumors, it fuels anxiety, and it can just shatter the single most valuable thing a company has, the trust of its people. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? What happens when that message is about a huge restructure, a big strategic shift, or, an office closing down? You just can't afford to play telephone with that kind of information. You need a system, a deliberate strategy to protect the message from getting warped. And that strategy actually has a name, the information cascade. Now, this isn't about just, blasting out a mass email and hoping for the best. No. Think of it more like the difference between a fire hose just spraying everywhere and a surgeon's scalpel. It's a precise, formal process designed specifically to stop that telephone game effect right in its tracks. So what does that actually look like? Well, picture a controlled waterfall of information. Senior leadership gets together and agrees on one single, accurate version of the truth. Then, that very precise message is strategically passed down through each layer of management, making sure it reaches every single person perfectly intact. The key here is this isn't for your everyday memo. This whole process is reserved for the really high-stakes stuff, the sensitive, complex news, where any bit of misinformation could be catastrophic. The entire goal is to have total control over the accuracy and the timing of the message, and have it delivered by the one person employees actually trust the most, their direct manager. Okay, so how do you actually build one? A successful cascade doesn't just happen by accident. It needs a really solid foundation, an organizational blueprint that everybody understands and follows. So let's dig into what that blueprint for success really looks like. It really boils down to a pretty simple but powerful formula. You need two crucial things working together: a solid, well-thought-out plan, and people, specifically your managers, who are totally empowered and equipped to actually make that plan happen. Let's break down the plan part first. Building this blueprint really involves 4 steps you just can't skip. First, you've got to define your criteria. Not every announcement needs the full cascade treatment, so you decide what does. Second, you map out the flow. You need to know exactly how the info is going to travel to reach every single person, including your remote teams. Third, firm deadlines. This creates urgency and makes sure the message doesn't get stuck somewhere. And finally, you perfect the message itself, making sure it already answers all the big how, what, and why questions that you know are coming. And listen, a plan is totally useless without the right tools. Critically, managers have to get a heads up. You can't have them being caught flat-footed. Creating dedicated channels for them, like a private forum, lets them support each other. And giving them things like a slide deck or a simple infographic, that ensures they all deliver a consistent message. These are the tools that turn a plan from just a document into a real, living process. All right, now for the second part of our formula, the empowered people. I mean, you can have a brilliant plan, but it's worthless without flawless execution. And in an information cascade, the manager isn't just a link in the chain. They are the keystone. They're the piece that holds the entire thing together. This gets right to the heart of why cascades work so well. Just think about it from an employee's perspective for a second. An announcement from a CEO you never see can feel cold, corporate, impersonal. But the exact same message delivered by your manager who knows you and your work, it just feels personal, relevant, and most importantly, trustworthy. This is where the manager's real power is. They are not just a mouthpiece, not at all. They are the #1 translator of that high-level corporate speak into what it actually means for the team on the ground. They're the ones who answer that huge unspoken question in the room. Okay, but what does this actually mean for me and my job? So to pull this off, managers need their own little game plan. They have to be ready for the tough questions. They've got to be super specific about how this impacts their team directly. They need to be hyper aware that their body language, a quick eye roll, a heavy sigh, can completely destroy the message. And finally, they have to create a safe space for people to vent and react while still being clear that, hey, the decision is final.
But here's the thing. The best communication systems are never just a one-way street. A truly great cascade doesn't just push information down. It strategically builds a pathway for feedback and feelings to flow right back up. It closes the loop.
And the difference is just night and day. A one-way broadcast? It just assumes people get it. It treats employees like they're just passive listeners. A two-way dialogue, on the other hand, actually checks for understanding and turns employees into active participants. And that shift is everything. That's what creates a real sense of ownership, instead of just quiet disengagement. The power of having this feedback loop is just immense. It gives your people a real voice, which makes them feel heard and valued. It is absolutely critical for getting everyone on board with big changes. And it gives leadership priceless insight into what's really going on, letting them tweak and improve the process for next time. So let's wrap this all up. A real information cascade isn't just an event. It's not another memo. It's a full communication system built on two pillars: a clear, strategic plan and the trusted, empowered people who actually bring that plan to life. And that really brings us to the final critical question you should be asking yourself. When important news has to get out in your workplace, is it being guided by a structured, strategic cascade? Or are you just leaving it all to chance and playing a very high-stakes game of telephone? The answer could make all the difference.